Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Moy Style podcast. So today we have back again Justin Williams. He's the owner of OKC Academy. I had him on my previous episode, and I think there's a pretty. He's got a pretty unique story because a lot of people don't realize we actually had an episode a while back about don't count your kids out so early at a young age, especially when they're 10, 11, 12 years old. A lot of parents hit the panic button and they realize that the kids are is not as good as the other kids, and I don't think parents realize the how much of a change kids can make, in 3, 4, 5 years. And so that's why I feel like Justin's story is pretty unique, and I think it can help out a lot of players. Not giving up too early, but at the same time being able to take care of their body, being able to keep their, stay healthy throughout their career and be able to last, have a long career in baseball. And obviously, hopefully parents can listen to this and relay the message back to their kids. So, Justin, again, I appreciate you for being on today, man.
Sure.
I really wanted to get started with what would you say to what would you recommend to a kid, just an average 11-year-old player in league, maybe travel ball, or either one. Like, what would you say to what would you recommend to a kid that age?
Yeah, I mean, so I like you said, like I'll just tell my story because I think it lines up exactly with your question. And just to kind of give this some context, I just finished coaching, a 15-year-old team. So from 5U to 15U. So I've seen guys develop and I've seen the same thing play out. So my story is, I was a very average league team kid all through youth, like even through 12U. And we finished 12U spring, so it's about a month or two from now. Like spring's over, we go into fall of 13U. So we're going from the small field to the big field. I play fall 13U, and I'm not having fun because I'm just not as developed as the other guys. So I'm not as big, I'm not as fast. Puberty hasn't hit me yet, where some of these kids, it hits them real early and they look like giants on teams, right? So after that fall season was over, I went to my dad and I was like, "Hey, like I don't want to play baseball anymore. It's just not fun for me." And he didn't let me quit. He was like, "You know what? I'll tell you what. Let's just give it the spring 13U season. So let's do our normal thing in the winter, play basketball, do a little bit of baseball, hitting, whatever, and then play one more season. And if you still don't like it, then you can quit. I'll let you quit." And so what happened is I grew about 6 to 8 inches in that winter time. And that's right. So I shot up, and not only did I shoot up, I really kind of gained some athleticism at the same time. And I was a completely different kid in that spring 13U season. I went from a player that nobody wanted. Nobody was texting my parents asking me to come play for them or pick up or anything like that. I went from that kid to the hardest thrower in the state, or one of the, right,
Hmm.
over a winter. So baseball before puberty doesn't matter. Like that's what you have to think about. And I was at a 12U tournament this last weekend, and it was 11 and 12 combined. And man, I swear there's some 11-year-olds that are not much bigger than my 5-year-old is right now. Like some teeny tiny guys. And then that 11-year-old team plays a 12-year-old team, and there's a guy on there bigger than me at 12, right? So everybody looks at that and says, "Wow, that is the upper echelon. That's where we need to be. He's so big." Well, when these guys are 16, 17 years old, 17, 18, they're all going to be, they're
That's a
all, it's
lot.
all right. They're all going to catch up to each other. Just because one guy took off and the other guy's down here doesn't mean this guy's not going to plateau and this guy's going to keep going. Like my freshman is a great example of that. He was 5'4" when he started the school year, and now he's 5'11"
Wow.
in one year. Like you just never know when that's going to happen. So like you say, don't hit the panic button, like just keep putting in the work. And the biggest thing I can tell you is baseball before puberty does not matter. You will sit there watching your son or daughter, if you're softball, playing high school baseball, softball, and you're going to reflect back and you're going to go, you know what? None of that mattered. None of those wins. It's the same thing. Like if you're in 11U now, nothing in 10U fall mattered.
Mm-hmm.
And every year you go, you look back at the previous year and nothing matters. Right? So when you're in high school, what matters when you're in high school is what type of skill set do you have? So what have you learned up until that point? And what's your body health like?
Mm-hmm.
So I went from wanting to quit to now having a lot of fun because I'm striking a lot of guys out. I'm hitting the ball really far. And then I just keep progressing and I end up, being drafted by the San Diego Padres.
Right. And that's what that was going to be my next question there. Well, before I got to the getting drafted. So when you got to high school, how hard were you throwing your freshman year?
Okay, so
Well,
freshman.
let's back it up a little bit. So like before you like 12
Okay.
under, obviously. I mean 12 and under. Excuse me.
We didn't have
How hard
radar guns back then. Well, parents didn't have radar guns back
Right.
then. Radar guns back then were like $4,000, and 6A schools had them, like UConn, and I'll talk about that in a second. But we didn't have pocket radars back then. But my dad did take video, right? And I can look at that video, and I can look at what I was pitching like. I can see the streak of the ball. And then I can look at my son back in 11U where I did have a pocket radar, right? Man, at 11U, I would probably be lucky to be throwing 50.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. I mean, so if you look from 11U at 50, when I was 15 years old, I was throwing 82.
Right.
And, I went to a tryout for, back then it was American Legion for UConn, and they had a radar gun, so that's how I know that, right? But I went from 82 as let's say a freshman to 88, 89 as a high school senior. But then, I kept progressing and I went to junior college, and here's the big thing, the big takeaway is my high school didn't have a weight room. We didn't have any training. We didn't have any of that. The college I went to fed me like 5 meals a day, so I ate a lot. And they had a huge weight room that we were in every single day, right? Or almost every single day. I remember I put on about 30 pounds of muscle in the 2 years I was at junior college. And I went from a guy that was 89 to a guy setting 93, 94. Topping a little higher than that. So that's kind of how I progressed. It was, again, puberty, getting stronger, eating more, sleeping, like that type of thing. But the cautionary tale to all of this, and I know this is kind of where you want to go. When I became the stud, I started getting used a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I started, pitching a lot, and back then, and we're talking, I graduated in 98, so 96 to 98. They didn't have the studies, and they didn't have the rules, and they didn't have all that stuff that we have today. I got overused a lot. I mean, I remember starting game 1 of a high school game 2 playing shortstop, and then having to come in and close the last 2 or 3 innings of game 2 after pitching complete game 1, right? I mean, I literally have news articles where it says, Justin Williams came in on 2 days rest after throwing 8 complete innings 2 days ago. Like, how many pitches did I throw in 8 innings? Like, insanity, right? So that contributed to me having my first shoulder surgery after my senior year. So senior year, I graduated. I had like a minor, what we'll call it, a cleanup, right? And then shoulder cleanup. And then I went into junior college. played 2 years of JUCO, was drafted by the Padres, played a couple years there, and then I had some major catastrophic shoulder issues that I had 2 really big surgeries back to back on and couldn't come back from it. But that's kind of my point here, right? Is I got overused, and I'll even say high school games don't matter. If you're a guy that is projected to go play college ball and go higher than that, I'll even tell you high school games don't matter. Now, the competitor in me will say if it's district, regional, state, I'm absolutely going over what I would consider my max to try to get my team to the next level, right? But if I'm playing against, some who it could be our rival, right? The competitor in me wants to go over 100 pitches or whatever, but the smart thing to do is to not do that, because you don't want to get to college and think of your arm and your body as a car. You don't want to be driving a car in college with 250,000 miles on it.
Right.
You want your car 50,000 miles, right? So you just have to be very careful if you're the guy that has the higher velo, the better pitcher, that you're not being overused, because you're going to look back on all this youth stuff and you're going to realize it didn't matter, right? But you have your coach in 12U pitching you back-to-back days, 40 pitches one day, 60 pitches the next. Then you're playing every game, and it's just all that wear and tear is going to add up, and it's going to create problems for you when you're at the pinnacle of your baseball career, and now you have to quit. You can't go anymore. Your body is not allowing you to go anymore, and that's where I was. I had higher than the major league average fastball sitting in minor league baseball. I had 2 shoulder surgeries I couldn't come back from. I was projected to get up there, but then I couldn't because I was overused in games in high school that didn't matter, much less youth baseball. We didn't play back then in youth baseball like they play now, right? So you're putting way more mileage on these kids. I saw a 9U team last year played over 120 games in 9U. So overuse is not just a pitch count in a game. Overuse is how many total pitches have you thrown in a season? How many total throws have you thrown in a season? Right? So that's my take on that.
So how hard were you? I'm pretty sure I asked you this before, but how hard were you throwing in the minor leagues?
I was sitting low 90s, 92, 93, 94, sitting in there, topping out 95, 96.
Right. And I mean, you brought up some great points because obviously we all want to compete. I mean, if I'm coaching youth baseball, I still want to win, but it doesn't mean that we have to win at all costs. Like try to just hurt arm or anything like that. I mean, I see it all the time. I don't, just not too long ago, a 10-year-old kid throwing over 80-some pitches, like close to 90. And not even
for a win that won't matter the next day.
What's that?
For a win that won't matter tomorrow.
Right. And I mean, obviously, it's awesome you win, all that good stuff, but I think sometimes coaches can get greedy, and parents too. I mean, they talk about coaches, but parents can get greedy too. And,
1,000%.
Right. And
I'll tell you. So I had a parent that we were 13U, again, bigger kid, threw harder than a lot of people, and I would keep him around 65 pitches at 13U, 65, 70 pitches,
right.
And the parents weren't happy. Like they wanted him to go longer,
right.
And so we got into the fall environment where we played 2 7-inning games on a Sunday. So I let him run up to 80, 85 pitches, but then I wouldn't play him defensively at all in that other 7-inning game.
DH, yeah.
And they got pissed.
Yeah.
They're like, why is he not playing?
Yeah.
Because I'm protecting your kid. And guess what? So I saw a TikTok today, like 10 minutes ago before we got on here. It was a college coach. And he was talking about the travel ball environment and the risk that good coaches have in getting them ready for college. So a really good travel ball coach that gets a guy ready for college coaches him hard or her hard, holds them accountable. When they have a bad attitude, they set, right? But you start setting a 4-hole that threw a bat because they struck out, and now all of a sudden mom and dad's mad and they're leaving your team.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of these travel organizations, they want the check. They don't want players to leave because that's income to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they let a lot of that slide. Right? So it's kind of the same thing with parents that, they want their 13-year-old to throw 120 pitches because he's big and strong and he can handle it. Well, he might be able to handle it now. We may not have an injury now, but all that overuse, I'm telling you, is going to catch up with you. I've seen it time and time again. That's why you see 11 and 12-year-olds in slings with growth plate issues in their elbows.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So what would you recommend? Like, what should a kid that's, like kind of like going back to the first question, but what would you recommend to a kid that's 10, 11, 12 years old? Like, what should they focus on?
I love this question. This is it. Focus on yourself and do not compare yourself to others.
Right.
Compare your progress to you. That's why I like a pocket radar. I can take pocket radar. Yeah, my kid's at 45 as a 9-year-old right now. Great. This time next year, he's at 50. This time next year, he's at 55. We are progressing. If you're not progressing, there's a problem. Are you not strong enough? Are you not being active enough? Are you not eating correctly? So compare yourself to yourself. Stop comparing the guy that's 5 foot tall, 85 pounds to the guy that's 5'7", 165 pounds and go, my kid doesn't throw as hard as him, and hitting the panic button.
Mm-hmm.
I had a kid like that on my 12-year-old team. And I think we were 11 is when his parents moved. And one of the smallest dudes on my team, right? Skinny, right? And I saw a video of him playing, I don't know, a weekend ago. And the guy's as big as me now.
Yeah.
Like, he's probably bigger than most of our kids because puberty just smacked him in the face and hit him a little later than everybody else.
Right.
But all those coaches up till 12U, 13U discounted the kid.
Mm-hmm.
But now they want him.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. I guess pretty greedy.
But you just got to compare yourself to yourself, man. That's the number one thing. Stop comparing yourself to other people.
I like that. Compare yourself to yourself. It sounds bad, but I mean, it makes a lot of sense because that's really what happens. Because I work with a lot of young kids, and I get parents come up to me all the time, and it's kind of the same story. They don't want to say like, my kid's not better than that kid, but
that's what they're thinking.
But I know that's kind of what they want to say. I'm like, you got to be patient. If not, then stop this.
You need to learn the correct swing before your strength comes.
Yeah.
Learn proper mechanics before your strength comes. Then when your strength comes, you're set up for success. But stop worrying about my 9-year-old only throws 45. So I'm going to go, get some heavy balls and get on this increased velocity, camps or whatever that ends up hurting your guys.
Right.
Because your kid is not ready for that yet.
Right. Let me ask you this, just out of curiosity. So, what do you think should be the what's it called? The max amount of pitches that the pitcher should pitch in high school, like from freshman to senior? Like what's a good scale as a freshman? It's like what's a good scale as a senior?
So, man, that's a real loaded question. I'm going to answer this in some length. So just stick with me, okay? The cookie cutter pitch count system is good, but it's not great. Okay? Here's the reason why. You have a guy that is 5'9", 130 pounds, and you got a guy that's 6'2", 260. Who exerts more force when they pitch? The bigger guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his shoulder has to be stronger to absorb those loads, right? So strength is relative to weight. Think of it that way. Okay. So this all goes back to the armcare.com and their platform. And that's why I absolutely love it, because what they do, they have a thing called a dynamometer, and I don't have it with me, but it's about the size of my wallet here. And it velcros to your wrist. Okay. And you're able to do what they call a quick exam, which is going to measure your range of motion internally, externally, right, with your shoulder. It also measures your strength. So what they do and what their platform does is after you pitch, so let's say you throw 70 pitches, you pitch, you go and you do a quick exam an hour after you pitch, and it shows you your strength loss. So if I did a measurement of my strength when I'm fresh, I haven't pitched in 5 or 6 days, I'm 100%, I'm not feeling sore or anything like that, and I set that strength number up here, let's say that strength number is 100 pounds of force, right, that I'm able to apply. Then I go out and I throw 80 pitches, and that strength number falls greater than like 6 or 7%, then your arm wasn't conditioned for the amount of exertion you did.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's different. So if you really want my 100% advice, is what armcare.com is doing is revolutionary.
Yeah.
The pitch count problem is just that. Everybody's going to be different. And here's what I found testing pitchers. These bigger dudes that can exert a ton of force, 90% of the time have the weakest shoulders.
Yeah.
Because it's relative to their weight. They have to be much stronger than a slender guy to absorb those forces, right? So, but if you want to get back to pitch counts, I'll give you a number. I'm not trying to avoid that. I think a guy that's 18 years old can run up to 100 pitches. As a coach, I would probably get nervous around 80. Right. And the reason is that guy probably threw 20 in the pregame, and through 80 pitches, he's probably at 5-6 innings. He's thrown another 25 pitches in warmups. So we're really sitting at about 120 if I keep a guy at 80. Like, let's be real about it. Right. Like that's the reason why I am a fan of the lower pitch counts, is because people aren't you're not counting warmup pitches. You're not counting what we've thrown before the game into that total. You're just counting game totals.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a fan of lower numbers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I was hoping you would talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people don't realize that, you're still throwing, when you're playing catch, in between innings, when you go to the mound, you're warming up in between innings when you play a position, and some of them pitch and catch. So all that stuff adds up, and it doesn't show on the actual official
right.
Yeah, doesn't mean that they count. And
my 12-year-olds.
What's that?
Like my 12-year-olds, I would try to keep them around 60.
Right.
We would keep them around 60 in-game pitches. When you get to 13, here's the deal: when you get and puberty starts happening, and they start growing, their arms start getting longer, right? So if I'm applying force further away, it's more stress here, right? So you got to be real careful in those puberty years of, 13, 14, 15, and you really got to take care of guys, especially because they have growth plates that haven't finished fusing together. And if you throw a lot, you could have a growth plate start to separate even more and cause pain, and then you're going to have to shut down for 6 to 8 weeks, like 100% shutdown. No batting, no throwing, none of that. And it's just precautionary to let those bones to actually grow and fuse together. Then you don't have that problem anymore. But as they're growing, that hasn't happened yet, and that's where a lot of overuse injuries come from, are in those growth plate areas. You can Google Little League shoulder. That's a great one to do some research on, to talk. It'll show you about growth plates and overuse, and they'll show you some X-rays of how they can separate and things of that nature.
Okay. Now my last question. I don't mean to keep you up here much longer, but when it comes to bands, like doing the bands, so how do the kids get? Which you kind of, I believe you mentioned this in last episode I had you on.
Yep.
But how do the kids get stronger with the bands?
Okay. So I talked about the armcare.com system, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the great thing about that is you download the armcare.com app. Okay. You have the dynamometer, you do the test. It's going to show you where your opportunities or where you're weak at. Okay. It's going to prescribe you some warm-up exercises, which are the same. And those are those 7 exercises for the bands. You would do those pre-game. You would do those pre-practice. Okay. Once you do the warm-up stuff in the app, it then has a button that pops up and says, get custom training. And you click that button and it prescribes you drills and exercises, bands, and plyo balls for like lifting them up, not throwing them, but like weighted balls for like strength stuff. Mm-hmm. It gives you custom drills that are to your player. It's not cookie cutter. It's not, like, hey, here's 10 exercises, everybody do them. It gives you, because some guys may have the front of their shoulder be weaker than the back of their shoulder or vice versa. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know what that is unless you test, right? So if you're on a cookie cutter program and you have imbalances front to back, you could be on a program that makes that worse because that program may be focused on where you're strong at already. So you're making the imbalance greater.
Right.
So that's why I'm really, really fond of their program. Now, you get the app, you're going to have to find somebody that can test you, or you're going to have to buy the dynamometer, which is a couple $100. But if you have somebody that's interested in pitching, like your player is like, man, I want to pitch, heck with the $400 bat, get the $200 dynamometer, and then get a $200 bat. I'm telling you, like, this is like me telling you to buy Bitcoin back in 2006. Like, that's how much hindsight I have into this stuff to tell you this is where you need to be. So,
yeah. And it's, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I would still recommend it to position players.
Oh, 1,000%. A thrower is a thrower.
Right.
A thrower is a thrower.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah. Well, Justin, again, I appreciate you again. And you guys can follow Justin on Facebook, and you can also go to his website, okcacademy.com. Is that right?
Okay, yes, sir. Yep.
And again, I appreciate you for all your information. A lot of the stuff that I do with the kids that I coach, honestly, I got it from you.
Yep.
I appreciate you for always giving some great information to the kids, and hopefully this opens up this eye-opening for a lot of parents and players out there, and really take care of your future, because just like Justin said, you gotta what was the saying you said about comparing?
You gotta get to college with a car with 50,000 miles on it, not 250,000 miles on it.
Right, but they're comparing
compare yourself to yourself.
To yourself, that's right. Yeah, I like that. And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and remember, keep it Moy Style.
Hey guys, Moy Style Baseball here. If you're interested in having me come out to your city for a fielding camp or a hitting camp, or if you're in the Oklahoma area and you're looking for private lessons or group lessons, you can shoot me a text at 251-509-3815. You can also email me at moystyle33@gmail.com. Keep it Moy Style.